Welcome back everybody, and today we're taking a look at another Universal Horror Monsters and Curiosities film via the box set that Umbrella has released, and it is 1960s The Leech Woman. So this is directed by Edward Dean, who also did Curse of the Undead, which is on the same disc as this film. And it's again a horror film, clocking in at 77 minutes long. Stars the likes of Colleen Gray, who's been mostly well known for like film noirs or thrillers from the likes of the 50s and 40s, with the likes of The Killing, Kiss of Death, Kansas City Confidential. But she was in another horror film called The Vampire from 1957, which I find to be rather good. You've also got Grant Williams, who was in a pair of some of my favourite sci-fi science fiction films from the 1950s. You got The Incredible Shrinking Man, and he was also in The Monolith Monsters. Then you got Philip Terry, who was in The Monster and the Girl and The Lost Weekend. And finally, Gloria Talbot, who was in I Married a Monster from Outer Space and The Cyclops, which is a film we've looked at earlier this year, I believe. And now I'm probably mispronouncing this term here or profession, but endocrinologist is in a dysfunctional marriage with an aging alcoholic wife, journeys to Africa seeking a drug that will restore youth. So, although this horror film isn't particularly anything special, while being a little lackluster in some areas, it does at least manage to be engrossing and somewhat entertaining. This is thanks in part to its solid three-act structure being different in each of its respective parts, as the first act is obviously the kind of like setup. The second act is a mix of action and adventure as they obviously go to Africa to just find this cure for old age and you know a way of limiting extending the lifespan of anyone who takes it. As in the first act, our doctor meets a woman who says that she's 150 odd years old. In fact, she's a former slave from Africa herself. So that's why they go to Africa to discover this drug that she has been able to be taking and prolong her life. And then the third act is all about the horror element, where all three are joined together neatly by some thematic weight. So obviously, it's dealing with lots of aging, the kind of idea that women, once you get to a certain age, are seen as useless and not someone to bother with or date or anything like that. And then obviously the idea that women have to, constantly put makeup on, present themselves in a certain way. It touches on areas like that. Doesn't go quite far enough for my liking, but it does touch upon them regardless, which is pretty decent for a film of this age. It is also well paced, has overall decent production value. The cast is serviceable. It doesn't outstay its welcome. The finale has a reasonably violent death. You don't see it actually happen, you just see the aftermath, but it is violent enough in that regard. And yeah, like I said, that three-part act structure for something that's only 77 minutes long means that, yeah, this is engaging throughout and changes things up enough to keep things as engaging as they are. So, yeah, I guess a 3 out of 5, just like I've given the last few films in this release, in fact. But it's all of a kind of a much of a muchness basically, where 3 stars doesn't necessarily mean I enjoy a film as much as another film that gets 3 stars. It's just that there are certain elements that are present to give it that score. And yeah, there's enough here to give it that score overall. Like I said, if it was more in depth in terms of its thematic weight, or had more violence or had some more entertaining scenes or such, then yeah, it probably would go up. But still, it's a decent enough effort, and it's the final film in the Supernatural Shockers Part 2 subtitle of this release. And yeah, we'll have mysterious melodramas in the from the next disc, although I do believe there's only one film in that from that disc that we'll be looking at, given I've looked at the other one. But nonetheless, this is in shot in 1:8:5 aspect ratio, black and white, 2.0 DTS HD MA audio, 1080p high definition presentation, and it looks and sounds perfectly good. I've only ever seen this via a DVD, so this is a definite improvement over that. English language soundtrack, and then English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. So, yeah, overall a solid release, and that is a shot from the film itself. Um, the one weak element about the film, though, is definitely the makeup effects, which are decent enough to start with, but when it comes to the final third or so, they definitely get a little bit weaker and a bit more obvious. But on the whole, a fairly solid effort, and yeah, certainly has more in its mind than some similar films from the same period. Nonetheless, so thank you for watching. If you have seen The Leech Woman before, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.